Hey, what's up YouTube? You're watching Ready Set Drone, and today I'm really excited because I'm finally going to get to show you what's in this box, so stay tuned. So before we get started, if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do if you like all types of drones, camera drones, racing drones, FPV drones, etc. I've had the good fortune this year to get to know a company called EMAX and try out a lot of their Tinyhawk products, which are a variety of different tiny whoop style drones like this one here. This is the Tinyhawk II, and this thing is quite amazing. It's actually my go-to drone for indoor flying. It's got a run cam on it, so it's got a very, very nice picture. It's got the ability to fly with a 1S or a 2S battery, and it's just a beast. I mean, I've bumped into so many things, and it does very well. Now, this is the Tinyhawk II Race Edition, which you can see is quite dirty, and the reason it's dirty is because I fly it a lot, and I've flown it in lots of grass. It has a lot of speed. I did a full review of this guy. If you want to see it, it's on the channel. I'll put the link up here, but it's something that you can learn how to fly a racing drone with very quickly. I wouldn't start with this one, by the way. The Tinyhawk II Race is pretty powerful because it uses 2 batteries in parallel and gives you a lot of punch and a lot of speed. If you wanted to start with something, I'd suggest the Tinyhawk S or the Tinyhawk II right here. But in this box is the Tinyhawk II Freestyle. Now, this is a freestyle quad. This does not have any prop guards like the regular Tinyhawk II does, and it's made of carbon fiber. It is very, very fast. I've flown through about 20 battery packs on it, and I have to say this thing just rips like crazy. Can it take a crash? Let me show you. What comes with this thing is 2 1S batteries as well as the Avan 2.5-inch props. Now, the Tinyhawk Race has the 2-inch props, so you can kind of see the difference in the size right there. They're bigger. Now, what is this thing for? The name says it all. It's for freestyle flying. It's for doing flips. It's for doing dives. It's for doing acrobatic stuff through small gaps. It is something that has a huge, huge power to weight ratio, which gives you the ability to fly it like a maniac and recover from all kinds of crazy dives, as I've learned in my short time of having this thing. Again, carbon fiber frame, the ability and actually requirement to plug in 2 batteries at the same time, which connect up here onto the top. It's got the run cam up here in the front. It is, of course, compatible with FrSky radio, so FrSky, easy to bind with. The bind button is right down here on the bottom. It actually says bind. I've seen very few quads where it says bind by the bind button. I appreciated that when I was looking for it, but it's down here on the bottom, and you need to hold the screwdriver down to bind it. On this guy here, you can bind it with the FrSky, and I just took my model that I had created in the remote control for this one, copied it, and made a few modifications for this one. Now, the propellers are bigger, and that's been my one point of contention with this drone. Is I've found that the props and the cables that are all over the place tend to hit each other quite a bit. You'll notice that when you start it, if you hear this clicking sound, it's hitting something. It could be hitting the battery, it could be hitting one of the cables back here. It could also be hitting these little tiny cables right in here. I find these pop up sometimes and they get hit, just nicked by the prop, and you don't want that. So one thing that I'm going to do, I haven't done it yet, is take these little cables and either put a really small zip tie to hold them down here, or perhaps even use maybe some dental floss or something really thin to tie them off, because they've been problematic in getting hit. The battery strap has the potential to get hit, and of course the battery itself, you've got to really position it in a good spot up here and manage this cable so that it's clear of both the back props. That's my one complaint about this drone. I would say not a complaint, but an observation is this thing is crazy, crazy fast. The punch out on it is insane. The power to weight ratio, as I said, is just crazy. So it's not something that you want to start off flying for the first time. I've said this before. I said this about the Tinyhawk II Race Edition here, this guy. Flying these two will make you a better pilot on this one, has been my observation, or on any other Tiny Whoop. And also, again, just with the speed on these things and the agility of them, it's like driving a sports car and then going back to a kind of family sedan with this thing. Now, don't get me wrong, this thing is fast and a ton of fun to fly, but after you've flown these, you realize this thing is pretty easy driving. So two other things to mention about the Tinyhawk II Freestyle. Number one, the run cam is adjustable. You can loosen these screws over here on the side and actually tilt it to the angle you want. I've got it at a good angle for me. I was flying with it earlier today and this worked really well. So that is a very nice feature. And then number two, it has an improved video transmitter over the original Tinyhawk series, and you can adjust it between 25, 100, and 200 milliwatts. So if you're flying by yourself and you want more range, more power, 200 milliwatts is pretty easy to adjust it to, and you're gonna get a better picture and less dropout. But if you're flying with buddies and you wanna race together, you can do the 25 milliwatts and race on the race band. So according to EMAX, this has a 7-minute cruising time. What that means to me is 7 minutes of pretty docile, easy cruising. I would imagine if you're really punching it and doing some crazy tricks and stuff like that, you're gonna end up getting more like 5 minutes, but it's still pretty good for a drone with this much power. And it's pretty easy to bring this thing back, land it right in front of you, and swap out the batteries in a matter of seconds. Now, the big advantage, if you don't already know, of the RunCam Nano is you just get better picture, better color, better contrast than you did. And all three of these actually have the RunCam. The original Tinyhawk series has just a standard FPV camera, which again, I think, I've said this before, I think these are used as like backup cameras on cars. They're not great quality, they're okay, but the RunCam is a big improvement. So that's one of the areas where they invested on the second line. Another thing I really like about this quad is the fact that the camera is pretty well protected. You can see these two bars go out just a little bit beyond it, and that helped me today. I actually ran into a fence once and I ran into a tree once, and both times was pretty much a head-on hit, and the camera came out of it just fine. The propellers pull on and off. You don't need screws for them. They're pretty tight when you put them on there. I think there are optional screws that you can put into them if you wanted to, but you don't really need them. I've flown it quite a bit without them and haven't used screws on my race either, and I've done just fine. I also really like the black and white kind of, I heard somebody call it stormtrooper decor here. It looks like stormtroopers on the planet Hoth, you know, where they had the white, more white with accents kind of uniforms. It's a cool look, and it has a very, very easy access to the insides here. It's just 4 screws up here on the top that you can pull this top plate off and get into the insides. So I know there's a lot of reviewers that'll go into a lot more depth than I did about the mechanics of it, the electronics, you know, the types of motors and the types of ESCs and all that stuff. And I would encourage you to go watch those. I might even put some links to their videos at the end of this one. But overall, as a, I'd say, advanced beginner FPV pilot, this thing is a ton of fun. It's challenging in a way that I like because it makes me a better pilot. And it also is fun to know when you're flying and you're dropping out of the sky that you have so much reserve power that you can take right off and pick up from just about any kind of fall out of the sky. So who is this thing for? First of all, I don't recommend this as your first FPV quad. As I said before, I'd buy a Tinyhawk S or a Tinyhawk 2 long before I would buy this or this as your first FPV quad. But if you're looking to get into micros and you're already pretty comfortable flying FPV, especially an FPV racer, then this is a good option. It's not very expensive for what you're getting, for the quality of the build, and it's tuned pretty well right out of the box. So those are my thoughts about the Tinyhawk II Freestyle. Really well made, very fast and fun to fly. Wish it had a little bit more clearance for the cables, but again, I think I can fix that with some zip ties. Just something to be careful of. And also note, when you spin it up, if the cables aren't getting hit, it's actually pretty quiet. It doesn't make a whole lot of noise when it's idling on the ground. It's when you hear that clicking noise that you know it's hitting something. But aside from that, I think this is a really cool addition to the Tinyhawk family. I'm excited to have it and to get to try it and fly it a bit more. I'm really excited that I have all three of these. And as I said, the more I fly these two, the better I seem to get at flying this one. So Ed Ricker, I'm coming for you. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, I hope you'll hit the like button. And if you want to know more about drones and FPV, please subscribe to Ready Set Drone. We'll see you next time.